The National Desk, America's News Now.
Now a partial troop withdrawal, the first signs of a drawdown in Gaza, even as Israel extends the war timeline. How long the fighting could last then?
I would be concerned about it having significant aftershocks over the coming months or even another year.
It's not over yet. After dozens of earthquakes left a trail of destruction through Japan, what officials are now warning about. And new year, new laws. What you need to know about what's in effect in your state. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and right now thousands of Israeli soldiers are being redeployed out of the Gaza Strip. Now, this pullout falls in line with goals set by the United States, urging Israel to reduce their campaign to a more targeted operation. Still, Israel says this is not a new phase of the war, and it expects to stay engaged in Gaza for the foreseeable future. Just yesterday, a spokesman for the IDF says the war could last all of this new year. In the meantime, the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza claims the death toll now nearing 22,000 people, more than 56,000 injured. Hamas says nearly 70% of the dead are women and children. Israel, meantime, claiming that more than 8,000 dead are terrorist combatants, many embedded among civilians. The USS Ford is returning home after an extended deployment in the Red Sea, but other American resources will be put there in this place. The amphibious assault ship USS Bataan will be accompanied by the USS Mesa Verde and the USS Carter Hall, already making their way to the Red Sea. Now, this redeployment comes as White House officials say they're not trying to create a bigger conflict out there in the Middle East. But just yesterday, U.S. helicopters sank 3 boats operated by Houthi rebels. U.S. Central Command said the Iranian-backed militant group fired at U.S. helicopters while attempting to board a container ship. Officials say the helicopters fired back in self-defense. The Houthis say they're targeting ships along the trade route in response to the war in Gaza, stoking fears of a larger regional conflict. A woman is dead and 4 people hurt after a New Year's Day mass shooting. This happening near a mall in Los Angeles County early this morning. The victims were all taken to the hospital. Right now, no arrests have been made. Police say that they're still investigating that shooting. Other shootings also marking a violent start to 2024. 3 of them happening in the same place, Prince George's County, Maryland. Those resulted in 3 deaths and numerous injuries. And several shootings in the Denver area last night and into this morning, killing at least 1 and putting 4 people in the hospital. Portland, Oregon, and Mobile, Alabama also saw some deadly shootings. In Mobile, that's now 2 years in a row on New Year's Day. According to the Gun Violence Archive, 2023 ended with the second highest number of mass shootings since they began tracking these incidents in 2014. Some new information tonight reveals the number of migrant encounters at the southern border, where House lawmakers are planning a visit this week. The National Desk's Christine Frizzau has the details from Washington.
As another migrant caravan makes its way to the United States, the challenges to care for those already here grow deeper. The final month of the year brought the most migrants in a single month ever. Fox News reporting the numbers reached more than 300,000. Big city mayors begging Washington for help.
What we have is clearly an international and federal crisis that local governments are being asked to subsidize. And this is unsustainable.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott publishing these numbers, showing how many migrants he's bused from his state to big cities with Democratic mayors, now overwhelmed, but still appearing to be welcoming.
Whenever I talk to migrants, I was with them yesterday, they'll just say, I only want one thing, which is the ability to work. And we have employers calling me every day saying, hey, Mayor, I have open jobs. Can I please hire these folks?
Others warn about the increase in numbers of migrants on the terror watch list. Already 30 have been apprehended in the first couple months of the new fiscal year.
Let's never forget 9/11. We're living in global unrest right now. We need to secure our country's borders, all the borders, and leaving them open right now is leaving every American vulnerable.
It's one reason Republicans on Capitol Hill, including the new Speaker of the House, are heading to the southern border this week, as others continue to work to make sure new border measures are part of a funding package for Israel and Ukraine, blaming the surge at the southern border on the White House's policy changes.
This is not irregular migration. That's a bunch of BS. This is a predictable outcome of bad policy choices made right after Biden became president.
It's a job polls show he risks losing, with some of his lowest marks for the way he's handled border security. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Well, the new year brings new laws on the books across the country. Missouri is one of 22 states where, along with Washington, D.C., the minimum wage went up today. Hawaii will see the biggest increase, $2, while Washington State and Washington, D.C. will have the highest hourly rate now at $16.28 and $17.05, respectively. Also starting today, Secure 2.0. It's a new law that lets employers contribute toward or match a worker's qualifying student loan payments. Now, you need to have an eligible retirement account like a 401k. If your employer offers the student loan payment option, they make a contribution into your account, and your monthly student loan payment would count as your contribution. Idaho and Louisiana have bans in effect today prohibiting gender-affirming care for minors. You remember in Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine there vetoed similar legislation late last week. Meantime, Maryland making gender-affirming care more accessible, requiring state Medicaid coverage of that care. And some abortion law changes in Washington State and in the state of California. In Washington, new insurance plans there will be prohibited from cost sharing with abortion patients, while in California, local health care providers will be shielded from out-of-state lawsuits for giving abortion and gender-affirming care to patients from those other states. Also in California, a controversial new law goes into effect today banning guns in 26 specified public spaces, including playgrounds and churches. In December, a U.S. district judge issued a ruling to block the law, citing the Second Amendment. But over the weekend, a federal appeals court put a temporary hold on that ruling. A new state-run court in the majority black capital of Mississippi is drawing some controversy. Last night, a judge denied requests to stop the court's creation in Jackson. NAACP lawyers had sued over how the judge and prosecutors will be selected, and they'll be appointed by officials who are white and conservative. The new court was set to begin operating today. Hundreds of Jeffrey Epstein court documents are set to be unsealed this week. The names of more than 150 associates, possible co-conspirators, and victims and others could be revealed. In fact, it's expected that it'll reveal his connections to very prominent people, including Prince Andrew and former President Bill Clinton. A judge said last month that there was no reason to keep those names hidden. They'll start to come out after today. Drug overdose fatalities hit a record 112,000 in the U.S. last year, the majority attributed to fentanyl. In Seattle, more people are dying from fentanyl in King County than ever before. County data there shows that more than 1,000 people have died this year from that drug. The National Desk's Leanne Nguyen reports.
I've woken up on many tent floors overdosed. I've woken up on a hotel floor overdosed. I've overdosed several times, and the blessing is I was able to come back from that.
More than 1,000 overdose deaths from fentanyl in King County this year. Joe Barsana says he could have easily been one of them before a felony landed him in King County's drug diversion court. Now working as a case manager in the same program, he keeps a collage of his old mugshots as a reminder to himself and others. There's hope.
That is someone who went through a tremendous amount of darkness, through trauma, but also put in a lot of tremendous amount of work to be successful in where I'm at today.
King County's drug diversion court has had more than 100 people graduate through the program in the last 2 years. It's a small dent compared to the hundreds dying, but Barsana says it is making a difference.
We see folks who get custody of their kids back. We see folks who reunite with their family they haven't seen in decades.
But there's still so much more to be done, as evidenced by dozens of needles and drug paraphernalia crews with We Heart Seattle pick up every day.
This is addiction, this is disease, this is a public health crisis, and people aren't going to just wake up on their own and say, I think I'm going to quit fentanyl today.
Andrea Suarez is pushing for policy changes that will help more people get clean.
We need to make it hard to get high and easy to get clean, friction-free access to clean and sober housing, and turn these hotels into recovery rooms, hospital rooms, not drug dens.
Trying to change this deadly trend one person at a time.
When you look at that 18-year-old kid, who do you see, and is there anything that you would tell him?
Recovery itself is a very successful and very great feeling, but the road to get here is very dark and it's very traumatic. I would tell that person that it's worth it. It's worth it to not give up on yourself and to choose a different path.
Coming up here on the National Desk, the Iowa caucuses are just 2 weeks away. How legal battles involving the top two contenders will impact the 2024 presidential race. Then hundreds of thousands of cans of baby formula recalled, the products you'll want to get rid of. And with the college football playoff semifinals underway, we get a chance to catch up with some of the players playing for the big prize. Check you out live here over St. Louis now. We'd like to welcome you all to the National Desk family of stations. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. 2024 election season kicks off with the first voting set to take place in the Iowa caucuses just 2 weeks from today. And then New Hampshire, the first primary that's in 1 week later on the 23rd. A once large Republican field is paring down now to just a few candidates. And New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu wants more to drop out.
This is a two-person race, right? It's between Trump and Nikki Haley. Everyone understands that. He knows his voters who want to see Trump defeated are all coming over to Nikki Haley.
Governor Chris Sununu made the comments on CNN Sunday night, referring to Chris Christie's efforts to stay on. Vivek Ramaswamy, Asa Hutchinson, and Ron DeSantis are also still in the race. Sununu recently endorsed Haley for president. Meantime, Trump still has a strong lead in the polls. And so when primary voting concludes, conventional wisdom points to a rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in November. But because of the legal clouds above each of their heads, a contest between them this year will look like nothing like 2020's. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman has more from Washington.
Campaigning this year could be complicated, to put it mildly, especially for those who appear to be the most likely of party nominees. After all, President Biden will begin the year still facing a potential impeachment if Republicans have their way. And Donald Trump, already twice impeached himself, is embroiled in a series of legal and civil cases spanning accusations of deceptive business practices to insurrection.
Whether it is a court that determines he's unfit to hold office because he took up force against our Constitution, or because the electorate throws him out, I don't think it really matters if he's unfit to hold office.
For Trump, the calendar is crowded with hearings right in the middle of stumping season. A scheduled court hearing for defamation claims the day after the Iowa caucus. The week after New Hampshire votes, it's a marketing scam trial. The federal criminal trial surrounding efforts to undermine the 2020 election proceeds the day before Super Tuesday, and a scattering of other court actions taking place both before and after the Republican nominating convention.
I don't think there's enough here to justify a criminal prosecution against the leading candidate to replace the incumbent. That is what happens in banana republics.
And even if President Biden can avoid the harshest of House punishments with impeachment.
Representatives, what are you hoping to gain from an impeachment inquiry?
All I can see is Donald J. Trump 2024, baby.
His son Hunter will spark headlines with gun charges in February, and still to be determined dates for tax-related crimes and possibly contempt of Congress.
Hunter Biden is of course not running for office, but in presidential politics, optics can matter.
Recent polling backing up that idea. 60% of voters say they believe President Biden participated in his son's foreign business dealings. As for Trump, 58% of voters told the New York Times they believe he has committed serious federal crimes.
That same poll reveals that more than half of voters have unfavorable views of both Trump and Biden, setting the stage for what could be a turbulent road to the White House. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Developing now, Japan lowered its highest level tsunami warning alert after a series of major earthquakes on New Year's Day. While the alert has been downgraded, officials still warning residents there not to return to their homes as deadly waves could still come ashore. The quakes, one of which had a magnitude 7.6, started some fires and also took down buildings along the west coast. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, there were more than a dozen quakes in the Japan Sea, and aftershocks could continue over the next 3 days, creating the potential for more building collapses and landslides. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says his military should, quote, thoroughly annihilate the U.S. and South Korea if provoked. He made the comment after promising to boost the country's defense. Kim says there's been an unprecedented U.S.-led confrontation. He's made increasingly hostile comments as the U.S. and South Korea have expanded their military drills. The current Queen of Denmark has decided to call it quits after 52 years. Queen Margaret II plans to abdicate to her 55-year-old son, Crown Prince Frederick. The 83-year-old says she will officially step down January 14th on the anniversary of when she ascended to the throne. But unlike most monarchies, don't expect a formal crowning ceremony for the new king. Instead, his ascension will just be announced from the royal castle in Copenhagen. By the numbers now, electric vehicle experts are staying optimistic despite some declining sales. They predict EVs will continue to get less expensive over time, with more than 50 models now on the market. Charging will likely get easier as most automakers are adopting Tesla's North American charging standard port. Still, insiders say the industry may have overestimated Americans' enthusiasm for EVs. The cost of the most widely prescribed insulin in the U.S., Sanofi's Lantus, is now capped at $35 a month for many diabetics. Other top insulin makers, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, have also reduced their prices. More than 8 million Americans need insulin to survive. Up to a quarter of them have struggled to afford the medication. Some powdered baby formula being pulled from store shelves now. The FDA is warning consumers of possible bacterial contamination in this powdered instant formula you see here. Manufacturers recalled more than 675,000 cans of it. These batches were distributed throughout the summer. No illnesses have been reported, but the company is urging consumers to throw out any impacted batches that they might have there in their homes or pantries. And we have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
For a day, fans get a chance to look and feel what it's like to be an NHL player, and they get multiple shots at it here at the Enterprise NHL Fan Village just outside Lumen Field, just around the corner from the Winter Classic matchup at T-Mobile Park.
It's the first Winter Classic for Seattle and Vegas, and we wanted to give an overall experience to the fans of Seattle and Vegas coming to town. Whether they have a ticket to today's game or not, we wanted to just have a 2-day free celebration for fans to come down.
From practicing your shot to air hockey, getting your trading card made, and even a chance to see the Stanley Cup up close, fans will experience life as a pro.
New York drivers are reacting to an increase in the throughway tolls. Easy Pass holders are seeing an increase of 5%, but drivers overall in the state will pay up to 75% more in tolls.
As soon as it was paid for, it was a free way, but that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen, because now to use it, they say to keep the roads maintained and all that, and DOT, that's a big part of their income and their budget too.
The state said the financial plan maintains some of the lowest toll rates in the country and that the move was made to meet infrastructure needs, and more price hikes are planned for 2027. And a West Virginia beauty pageant organizer is accused of raising money for charities but never donating those funds to the charities. 42-year-old Gary Beamer of Braxton County was arrested Wednesday. He's facing fraud charges. West Virginia State Police say the man held several beauty pageants as far back as 2007, raising money allegedly for St. Jude's Medical Research Hospital and the West Virginia chapter of the Alzheimer's Association.
It's also sad for the children that spent all the time raising this money that they thought was going to go to a great benefit, and it did not.
State Police and the Braxton County Prosecutor's Office continue to investigate. Coming up here on the National Desk, a public health provider shares how organ donation can help save lives, especially among one particular demographic. And we take you live over Seattle tonight, where the Seattle Kraken is playing the Vegas Knights in the Outdoor Winter Classic. For those of you watching in Seattle, welcome to the National Desk family of stations. You are watching the National Desk, America's News Now. Welcome back. A public health provider who's now an advocate for organ donation, encouraging others to consider doing the same this new year. She recently sat for a conversation with medical reporter Liz Bonis to share how it could help save lives.
I know for myself, decades ago, I wasn't an organ donor. I wasn't an organ donor because I believed what was said in my family, which is like, oh my gosh, if you're an organ donor, you know, something happens to you, they're not going to save you. Well, that is completely wrong. But those are the kind of stories that, you know, are passed down from generation to generation.
So this is important, of course, for all populations. But why do you share that it's especially important for those who are African Americans and of other ethnicities?
Well, it's especially important for a couple of reasons. Black people are 4 times more likely to have kidney failure, resulting in dialysis. And when we look at the rates of kidney donation and transplant, while Black people represent 13% of this country, they represent 33 to 36% of the people waiting for a kidney.
So what framed your thinking about organ donation?
I now know the data. I know the impact. I know that when it comes to transplant of all kinds, specifically heart transplant and kidney, that the data shows that Black people are less likely to receive those transplants. Not to say that your transplant can only come from a Black person, but if we are not in that organ donor registry, it does minimize and limit the viability of finding a right match.
It almost seems disrespectful when you sort of go against maybe an older family member or what's generational knowledge. So how do you have that conversation, or can you have it?
There is a way to do that. And I think that during COVID-19, I think we learned how to do that. Because I think when we talk to each other and we understand maybe the basis for fear, or basis of the information, it doesn't mean that, hey, I'm right and you're wrong. It just means that what information I have has informed what I believe. Mm-hmm. And so when you begin to understand that about someone else that maybe has a different belief, it helps you have a conversation. It may not at that moment change anything, but maybe over time it could.
That was Bonus reporting. The college football playoff semifinals underway right now, and right now the #1 ranked Michigan Wolverines and #4 Alabama tied 7-7 in the second quarter. Meantime, both Texas and Washington fans ready for the other half of the semifinals in New Orleans. That's at around 8 p.m. tonight. At the National Desk's Nico Tamorian also got the chance to catch up with some of the players before today's game. He reports from the Caesars Superdome.
The hard work of an undefeated season. The reward leading to this, the pomp and circumstance of the college football playoff, the national semifinal against Texas in the Sugar Bowl, with a chance at making it to the national championship.
Super excited for the whole opportunity to obviously be here, to play in this dome, where a lot of historical things happen. But we're all soaking it in, but at the end of the day, it's just another game for us. We got to make sure that we prepare and come out ready to play come Mondays.
So the Huskies hope to end up here in Houston, but before that, they got to take care of business a little further east. To here in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl, where that is what's on the line here. Certainly high stakes, as high as it gets in college football. Rest assured the Dogs are ready.
We're just focused on winning the next game ahead, and we have a great challenge ahead of us as a team. And I know as personally as the O-line up front, we have one of the best D-lines we're going to face all year. So we know what's at stake, and I know we want to bring this home, especially for the city of Seattle.
So the stage is set. The Dogs are underdogs once again, but none of it matters when they line them up and play on Monday night.
That was Nico Tamorian reporting. And coming up, another historic lottery jackpot up for grabs. How much you could win in tonight's Powerball drawing. We're back in 90 seconds. The Powerball jackpot is now at an estimated $810 million after the final drawing of the year ended with no big winners. So that means players have another chance to win tonight. It's been over 2 months since we've seen a winner. Tonight's jackpot, the 5th largest Powerball prize and the 10th largest lottery in U.S. history. Good luck to all of you, good luck to all of you playing tonight. It's hard to keep your words together when you're thinking about those big numbers. That's going to do it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for the evening edition of the National Desk. Check your local listings for the exact time. I'm Eugene Ramirez. I'll see you tonight.